Hi friends! In honor of the summer solstice, I want to talk about some books that observe and mark the passage of time. So the comings and goings of the seasons, different kind of midwinter festivals or midsummer festivals, especially since we just had the solstice, so it brings it to mind. So we're going to talk about books that talk about the passage of time. So this first book I like to read just throughout the year, and I do it pretty much every year. And if there's a year where, since I've bought this book, that I haven't picked it up and glanced at it at some point throughout the year, I don't know if that year has happened yet because it's absolutely fabulous. So this book is called The Origins of the Calendar, The Dance of Time, a miscellany of history and myth, religion and astronomy, festivals and feast days, and it's by Michael Judge. And I found this in, I don't know, some clearance rack or some dollar, but you know when you go see books, $1, and you're like, pull over! I found this in one of those kinds of stores, so it's even more special to me. But it just talks about why we celebrate different markings of the calendar, how that came to be, why things happened at different times of the year. So we're just going to talk about it while Floofer plays next to me. And this book is set up seasonally. So it starts out explaining how did we get here? Why do we mark the passage of time? How did we get to mark the passage of time as we do currently today? And then it's broken up seasonally. So this book, in the contents, it just lays it out. First, we're going to be talking about how the year is set up and how we got there. And then we're going to talk about, each individual thing as it breaks down. So in part one, The Tale of Years, it just kind of discusses how time and the concept of time really got started. So it starts, and each chapter, it's a beautiful book, by the way. Each chapter starts with a quote from some other form of literature. So you get bits of poetry and play, and other, just bits of literature happening. The first quote is by Friedrich Nietzsche, which shows you how great it is. And the quote is, "Starting now, the hours of the clock will hang on a hair around my neck. Starting now, the stars will stop in their courses, sun-cock-crow shadows, and everything that time proclaimed is now deaf and dumb and blind. For me, all nature is silenced with the ticking of the law and its measure." So this just introduces the idea of keeping track of time and how that brought us so distanced from nature and the natural progressions of nature and seasonal progressions and that kind of thing. So the book opens by saying, "The flowing river of time carrying us from inception to eternity is both invention and illusion, a phantom child of mortal dreams and fears, so the scientists tell us. They assure us that the velocity can stretch time like wool spun on a distaff, and that relatively makes time merely another variable in a host of equations whirling around the universe. Certainly our time, Western time, the spliced and segregated seconds, minutes, and hours by which we regulate our busy lives, was an invention of the late Middle Ages. Before them, time was measured naturally, and by those things which it was made, the sun, the moon, and the stars, revolving watchers of the sleepy soldiers, humans criers at dawn, and the cattle lowing and gloaming, burning tapers during peace and burning cities during war." So it just talks about how the invention of the clock and the calendar just puts so much distance between how we observe time and interact with nature, and that kind of thing. And then it goes on to chapter 2, which talks about the marriage of heaven and earth, and just kind of talking about, well, how did we used to mark these things? Ancients found the changes in the earthly world rather easy to explain. You know, they looked around and they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we'll take our measure from that. And the Sumerians became the first human beings to record for succeeding generations, and for us, the astonishing fact that the essential events of their lives, the growth of crops, the rising and falling of rivers, the mating and birth of animals, and all the other marvels of the world, seem to be enthralled to the wanderings of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So it talks about that. And then in chapter 3, it's called Calendarium, and it talks about the invention of the Roman calendar, and how that just kind of changed things forever. And again, further distanced the nature of humans observing the seasons and taking their measure from the seasons, and the more distant version that we have today. And the quote of chapter 5, which is called Converting the Faithful, because obviously the calendar that we use today is because of one type of person won, basically, in the colonization of the world, and everybody else kind of adapted. And the quote by Fernand Braudel is, European thought is inconceivable except as a dialogue with Christianity. And again, chapter 5 is called Converting the Faithful, and how the Roman calendar just became the standard, which is a really interesting intellectual conversation to have with this book and yourself. And that's kind of part 1. So how did we go from judging the moon and the stars and kind of living with the seasons to this very distant relationship that we have with nature now? So in part 2 of this book is where we start breaking down things into seasons. So each season is broken down. Again, you have a beautiful poem or some kind of lifted script from a play or another book, to celebrate the season in which they are talking about. This first one is William Shakespeare's winter poem, which is lovely. And then it goes into each month of the year. And in each month, what holidays do we celebrate or observe, or what major kind of celestial things are happening, and how are we, where did those traditions come from? So it really hooks you into what I like to call the how and the why of the now. So it really plants you into what's going on today, right now, in this season, and why are we celebrating the things that we're celebrating, and where did those traditions come from, and how did we get here? Good Lord. So it takes, you get kind of a breakdown of every month. This is kind of how the world is feeling in January. January marks the end of the revels that from the most ancient of days have celebrated the seeming death and resurrection of the sun at the winter solstice on December 21st. January's reputation, then, is as bleak as its Anglo-Saxon name. Wolf Moneth, month of wolves. The wolves came because they were starving. The cattle they preyed on during the warm months had been safely penned for winter. And so it's just talking about what life is like right now. January is a month of dualities and contradictions. Although it is a thought that at the opening of gloomy winter, after the lights and joys of the holidays, January is also one of the most beautiful months of the year. Nature reveals herself without artifice. Sunlight on a bare branch, on stone or earth, revealing the hidden contours of nature, the simple skeleton of creation. So it just kind of celebrates the month that you find yourself in. Thanks, Katie. Again, it just takes each holiday that we come in the month, and where did this holiday come from? Why do we celebrate it? Where did these traditions come from? So January 1st, it starts with New Year's Day. Where did these different kind of things come from? He talks about how Yeah. Where did mistletoe come from? When the great Irish and Scottish immigrations into North America began during the 19th century, the people brought all their folk beliefs with them, and how did that affect things? The Druid kind of pagan roots of those, and how did those get in to the kind of celebrations that we have? And then again, next month, February. What's going on in February? Let's talk about it. February feels like this. This is what's happening in February. February is a room rich with hidden promises of the frozen earth. Beautiful. What are we celebrating during February? Apparently there's something called a cross-quarter day. Apparently Europeans do that one, mostly of the British variety. And then there's Valentine's Day, the Lupercal, St. Valentine's Day. Where did those celebrations come from? Lent. What's going on there? Where did that come from? What's happening? And then again, March. So it goes through every single month, what's happening in the world, or as far as like nature is concerned. Like the world, is it frosty? Is it springtime? Is it summer? Are things awake? Do we have enough food? Are we happy and content at this time, or are we a little bit scared? And then it just talks about, yeah, breaks it down. Spring. Now we're in spring. And then you're in April. What's happening in April? And it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. And again, I tend to read this throughout the year. So it's like, okay, so it's summer now. Let's read about summer. And what's happening and why are we doing these things in summer? And it's just a wonderful, wonderful way to center yourself back into nature and seasonal living and observing the wonders of nature around you. And Floofer is in a mood and I love it so much. Get it. So that is The Origins of the Calendar, The Dance of Time, a miscellany of history and myth, religion and astronomy, festivals and feast days by Michael Judge. Again, I found it in a random bookstore and you can probably find it on the internet. It's fantastic. Highly recommended. So if you're really interested in history or seasonal living or just being observant of nature, highly recommend. The next book that I want to talk about, I literally just finished. My mom got this for me for my birthday, and it's very similar in the fact that it wants you to observe seasonal living. Like, what is happening in nature? How does that affect me, my work, my business, etc. So this book, I guess she said she found it because it's one of the, I guess she's got like some kind of social media presence that my mom follows, and that's how she found it. It's called Evergreen Discover the Joy in Every Season, and it's by Lydia Millen. Again, it's a UK, look at how pretty this book is, by the way. She's so pretty. By the way, this book is gorgeous. We're just going to show off this book for a minute. Look at how pretty this book is. Just, isn't it lovely? Absolutely delightful. Just beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful book. So again, this goes through the seasons, and apparently like she had a time, as we do, and she was like, listen, I need to just kind of get back to myself, get back to what really matters. And it's lovely. And again, it's something that you can read just all at once, or you can read it as you go throughout the year. I might bring this into my yearly annual readings along with the Dance of Time. I don't know. But again, this book is gorgeous to look at. So even if you're just kind of bibliophile that doesn't necessarily read books, but just wants to look at them because they're so pretty. Look how pretty. Look how pretty. So pretty. So pretty, pretty, pretty. So in this book, again, it's broken up by the seasons just like the last book was. So it starts off with midwinter, spring, summer, autumn, and then finally we're ending ourselves back in winter, and we've gone full circle with the seasons. And it just kind of breaks down different ponderings for the season. And it introduces itself by defining evergreen, burying foliage throughout the year, continually shedding and replacing leaves, which is a wonderful metaphor for just a way to live your life in general, and that's kind of the flow of the book. So she says, creating an evergreen life, a life of fulfillment, joy, and peace has become my daily mission. So it's just, again, kind of her life story and going through the seasons. So again, look at how pretty this book is. Part 1, Midwinter. Looks so pretty. January and February. And again, like the last book, it breaks up each season by first celebrating it before then kind of divulging into kind of the ifs, ands, whats, hows, and whys about it. So we get like this lovely little like center yourself into the world that we're about to talk about moment, which is lovely. And then it gets into kind of the chapter of the season and how she kind of feels about it. And there's these beautiful little like doodles and drawings throughout, which again, just make it a beautiful, beautiful book. So first she just talks about, you know, the wisdom of nature and what we can learn about nature just in general. And so again, she has like these themes that she breaks down like per season that she talks about. And again, it's just a beautiful book with precious, precious drawings in it. And then after she kind of goes through like, in this season, I'm thinking about, you know, ways to let joy in winter and like the wisdom of nature and like there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad weather attire, you know, just kind of embracing winter and all that it means and like saving your energy and like kind of doing it anyway. And then she does this thing after each kind of, I don't know, chapter that she has, applying evergreen thinking, how to tune into nature's wisdom. So based on what she just talked about, like what are the key takeaways? So if you just want to read like the key takeaways and just kind of flip through it, you can do that. You can just kind of get to these applying evergreen thinking in everyday situation kind of sections. So she says things like, instead of prioritizing the weather forecast above your plans, prioritize the plan and make the weather work around it. Whether you're in the city or the countryside, pay attention to what your senses observe as you step outside and how that changes throughout the year. Different things like that. And then she talks about the right to rest in winter. Preach! And again, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. So she goes through midwinter and she talks about her different musings, and then she breaks them down in her evergreen thinking kind of breakdown things. And then at the end of the season, she does this thing where she breaks it down further. So her like seasonal prompts, things to look out for, what I'm letting go of, what I'm celebrating, seasonal favorites from our kitchen garden, my seasonal fragrance. I really like that she does a seasonal fragrance in her life. She changes her perfume with the season. I love that for her. And again, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. So cute. She's celebrating the gradual increase of daylight hours each day, the first glimpse of snow as it settles on the ground. She's letting go of the worries of the previous year and the pressure to make New Year's resolutions immediately. I prefer to embrace the natural rhythm of the season and ease into the year at my own pace instead. And then she has recipes for the season at the end of every like season chapter, which is fabulous. So what I'm drinking, this fabulous honey balm, lemon balm and honey tea, the recipe, the method. Midwinter recipe, she's eating this parsnip, chili, and cream cheese soup. The recipe, the method, like she just kind of settles you right into the season. Enjoy some seasonal offerings, basically. And then she gets into part 2, which is spring. And again, we celebrate the season. And she breaks it down, and she has her little talks, and she breaks it down into her evergreen thinking, yada, yada, yada. She ends it with her recipes. homegrown rhubarb and a rosemary spritzer. Sounds delicious. Forged nettle and lemon sponge cake. Again, sounds delicious. Summer, she does the same thing. She sets us up for summer. She talks about it. She breaks down different musings that come to her throughout the summer. The importance of fun. She gets down into science, like it releases feel-good hormones, boosts creativity, boosts levels, and all these benefits compound the more we make time for it, leading to scientifically proven more content life. So don't feel guilty about prioritizing fun, especially in the summer. Like, live seasonally. It's a good time for it. Live your life. Consciously make an effort to notice when and with whom you feel your best. Remind yourself that in spite of, kind of beating yourself for taking time off during the summer, you don't need a reason to have fun or to earn your right to have fun. Make a list of everything in your life that you consider to be a magical moment, and then consciously look out for those things each and every day and notice how often you find yourself smiling as a result. And remember that fun is whatever you want it to be. Rethinking comparison and jealousy. Welcome abundance. It's summer. The freedom to be yourself. Just kind of lean into yourself. You are in your growing period. You are in the summer of your life. Lean into it. We're celebrating the abundance of the kitchen garden. We're eating garden pea shoot risotto. And then we come into autumn. Again, such a cute book. So cute. Autumn has some hard-hitting lessons that hit my life as I was reading it. Autumn's metamorphosis never fails to remind me that change is healthy, that life is fluid, and it's okay to let go of anything that holds you back. It inspires me to play around with color, to be bold in my actions, even if those actions look like snuggling up with a good book, and encourages me to continue learning about and leaning into the real me deep down. For that reason, I think of transformation as a non-negotiable in life as we navigate its undulating path, learn, and hopefully grow, which is a beautiful lesson to take from the seasons. One of the most powerful kind of pondering chapters that she had that I was the most drawn to was the power of reflection, and just sitting with each season and just reflecting on how it makes you feel, what's happening in the world, what's available. Observing the year from a place of rest allows me to reflect with grace for myself, for others, and for the situations I've found myself in throughout the year. It plays a huge part in my personal growth and development. After all, what good is reflecting if you don't act on and learn from the observations you make? Okay. And then she says it's the details of the days where she's feeling the best that interest her the most. Pay attention to who I was with, where in the world was I, what type of exercise was I doing, what was I eating, what was I drinking, when was I going to bed, what was I consuming, what was going on in the world, and kind of how all of that just affects how you're feeling. And in the same day where she observes the details when the days felt rosy, consider the days where it didn't and what my circumstances were like at that time too. So again, just kind of take your notes from the seasons and from nature and kind of live with those kinds of lessons in your life. And it's lovely, lovely book. The conclusion is whether it's daily return of light or darkness, the monthly orbit of the moon, or the annual return of the seasons, which have provided so much grounding in recent years, it's not lost on me how things come full circle in life. Ain't that the truth? So it's just a lovely little book that just teaches you to enjoy the seasons for what they are and what they bring. I know a lot of people are like, summer, yeah, winter, boo. And I'm definitely one of those people because I am not the same person in the summer as I am in the winter. Those are two completely different people. Winter Heather hibernates. She has no interest in going outside. And summer Heather wants to go out and play and see the world and adventure and experience things. So it's just really interesting to kind of sit with, like I said, the how and the why of the now, which is a really interesting concept to play with. And again, she's just encouraging you to have an evergreen life. The commitment to filing color year-round, even if those colors sometimes look faded, the dedication to growing, however long it takes, the resilience that builds thicker leaves, even though they were born out of discomfort. That consistency of spirit is what sets evergreens apart, and that it's the consistency of spirit which no storm can break. So, fabulous, fabulous little books to just kind of ingratiate yourself into the season. So if you're somebody who's marked or celebrated the solstice or interested in finding out more about the how and the whys of the now, I highly suggest The Origins of the Calendar, The Dance of Time, a miscellany of history and myth, religion and astronomy, festivals and feast days by Michael Judge, as well as Evergreen Discover the Joy in Every Season by Lydia Millen. So let me know what books are on your bookshelves that kind of talk about the passage of time, not time travel. That is a completely different discussion. We'll probably get to that soon because time travel is dope. So let's talk about the how and the why of the now. Let me know what you're reading about it. Bye.